You are listening to Joygasm, where we chat about video games, movies, and pop culture. I'm Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360. You know who that bald and beautiful boy is across from me. That's right, he's Steve, Xbox Live Stevavitch. And returning on this episode is our good old friend Brad, who is going to be wishing all of you a Happy New Year on episode 102 today, December 28th. 2018. We're going to forgo gaming news, movie news, and even this week in game and movie anniversaries. And instead, we are going to focus primarily on our favorite movies of 2018, which is a bit of a two-parter. The first part from last week, we focused on our favorite games of 2018, which was the top 5. And so we thought it'd be fun to make a triumphant return and do the movie side of things, which, of course, is the only appropriate thing to do. Bradley, welcome back to the show. How are you doing, good sir?
Oh, I'm very, very good, Russell. How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm very good. We just got back from seeing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I was just absolutely determined to see before we record this episode because I've been hearing a lot of great things about it. So we are coming fresh off that bandwagon.
So what did you think? You want to give us a little preview of some of your thoughts on Into the Spider-Verse?
Oh, I can definitely, yeah, sure. I'll go into it. You know, I'll start. I was going to start with you, but I'm gonna start with me this time. I'm gonna be selfish.
There you go. So, Russell, what have you been up to this week?
Thank you. So for me, I have been actually on a movie watching binge, primarily speaking, just because this podcast was coming up, and so I've been going to the theater like crazy. There's been a lot that has dropped just within this past month. Some of which not so good. Others that have been just a real fun romp through, so to speak. So went through, I'm just starting off again just with Spider-Man, since that's the most recent thing that we saw. Really did enjoy it a lot. So I'm definitely thinking it probably does have a place in my top 5 movies of the year. I'm kind of ping-ponging it around. I'm going to try and figure out where it's going to land exactly, but just really loved the art direction in that movie, which I knew I would just because judging from the trailer itself, there was a very unique style that they were trying to kind of toy with and flirt with, and I think that they were very successful with it. I thought it was just a very visual tour de force, so to speak. And the storyline also was very engaging. For me, when I look at the comic books, I have never read the Spider-Verse. I don't even know how to really describe it, but basically that version of Spider-Man. I was always reading kind of the classic Peter Parker Amazing Spider-Man. And so it was a fun experience for me personally to be able to go through this particular movie, find out about some of these other spider people that live in these parallel dimensions. And I could see how having this sort of Spider-Verse really just opens the creative door for possibilities and be able to tell some other very entertaining stories. And so, yeah, I really did dig it. I also, just within the last week or so, I want to say, I went and saw the movie Vice. I also saw Mary Poppins. So
you've been binging.
I have been binging. Yes. I'm trying to remember if there were any other movies I saw at the theater.
Aquaman.
Oh, that's right. We saw Aquaman. You should have said I am Aquaman, but in that gurgle sound. Oh, he's taking, let's see. There you go. That's close enough.
No, I was going to have to spew it all in your face there for a minute. I'm going to stop right there.
You get an E for effort. How about that? No, but okay. So with Aquaman, I'll just quickly go through these. Aquaman itself, I thought it was very cheesy, but fun. There were things about it that I thought were fun, and Jason Momoa definitely carried that film. I think if there was anyone else who played that character as opposed to him, I think the movie would have just absolutely failed miserably. But I do think that I've said this from the very beginning. I think he is a wonderful pick to play the part. I think that the movie almost kind of suffered from not doing enough takes in a way. Like some of this, the way the lines were delivered, the lines of dialogue, I felt like if they had just one more take, they could have nailed some of the dialogue. But they just didn't do that in certain parts. And so it was definitely cheesy in certain areas. And I mean, even some of the outfits, not a lot, mind you, but just like mostly like the soldier, like the Aqua. I can't remember what's the land that he's from. It's not Atlantis.
It is Atlantis.
So, it is Atlantis.
So
Yeah.
the
it is
Force costumes you didn't care for.
Yeah. So I thought that like concept wise they looked pretty cool, but I felt like they just the execution of the practical costumes themselves. And I think Steve and I talked about this. Like they looked a little too plasticky.
Yeah.
And which is, it's just unfortunate because I thought there were some novel ideas with how they were approaching some of that. But aside from some of the cheesiness, I mean, visually speaking, what a gorgeous movie. I mean, there was just a metric ton of underwater visuals. It was just such a spectacle at times. And I was talking to Steve about this too. I really appreciated the enthusiasm that you could feel from the movie. Like you could tell the director really had a fun time putting this movie together and got the cast and crew excited about what they were doing. And I feel like I need to commend him on that just because knowing what a challenge it is to get into a movie like Aquaman, because the source material itself, it's not as easy to accept and digest as opposed to something like Spider-Man or Captain America or some of the more popular comic book characters out there, especially in the DC universe. Obviously Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, those are going to be much more quick to have kind of that acceptance factor in there. And so I don't know, for me, like, I think that was really commendable on his part. Also the music was super cool. I really appreciated how they took some risks in that. There was kind of that Stranger Things 80s synthesizer sounds that were in there. I would say a couple of times it was a little bit too much, but by and large, a lot of it, I'm just like, man, this is really good. So anyway, needless to say, that movie did not make my top 5, but I still think that there were things about it that I do appreciate. I am curious to see where they take it moving forward. Really did like I enjoyed seeing Nicole Kidman back in a role that's kind of like that. That's a lot of fun. So just having those little nuggets in there, I think that overall it was really good. Now, Vice, on the other hand, I really didn't care for at all. I was actually looking forward to that quite a bit. And I'm a fan of the director because he did The Big Short. Have you seen that, Bradley?
I have. That's a good one. That's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Steve's seen it too. And I really liked his combination of like just kind of chronicling what was going on during that time period around 2007, 2008 with the financial crisis. But he also injected a lot of humor and a lot of just really quick wit. That was, I don't know, I just felt like it was really sharp. It was a really neat way to be able to educate the public on a very serious situation that took place. And it's almost like one of those like edutainment kind of things in a way. But like, I love the cast from that movie, and I loved how they approach the source material because it's a pretty heavy topic to discuss when you think about it. And I'm glad that he didn't shy away from it necessarily. But when it came to Vice, like on the one hand, you have a bunch of actors that are just so talented. They're absolutely brilliant at their craft, and it's no different when you see it in this movie. I think the problem though was that the humor portion of it got completely taken away, and so now you have more of just this, I don't know, kind of serious movie of sorts that focuses around the W. Bush administration. Ideally, it was supposed to focus around Cheney, which it does, but you have a lot of the other characters in the roles, such as like Donald Rumsfeld and W and Chaney's wife and Colin Powell. There's quite a few of them in there. And I just wish that there was still that approach that he took with The Big Short. So I was actually, and I was looking forward to that movie so much. I was anticipating that was also going to be in my top 5, but alas, it is not. And of course, Mary Poppins. Have you seen Mary Poppins, Bradley?
I have not. We have some friends who've seen it. It seems to be getting very mixed reviews, so it hasn't made its way to the top of the list for us to go see. But it is one we're considering to go see this weekend, so I'd love to hear your take on it.
So I really do recommend going to see Mary Poppins, and that is saying something because I'm a huge fan of the original. I love Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. I think that they are terrific in that movie. I think it's one of those like classic movies that just, it doesn't matter who you are, you watch it and it's like, man, this is like just good family fun. And I think that that was a very large shoe to fill for Disney to have a sequel come out, simply because obviously you're not dealing with the same cast. And I think Emily Blunt did a terrific job. Obviously, she will never replace Julie Andrews, but I do think that she did a really nice job, all things considered. First of all, the woman can sing. I was very pleasantly surprised to listen to her sing. She's got a lovely voice. And also on top of that, she just, Emily Blunt is one of those people who you don't really see her smile all that much. She's a bit more reserved. And so in this movie, she's got a dynamite smile too. I mean, like I really do feel like this role was an opportunity for her to really branch out and demonstrate a bit more of what she's capable of when it comes to acting. And I mean, I've seen her on talk shows, and she's a lot more laid back than a lot of the promotional materials and the marketing materials that you see. They tend to try and draw out more of the stoic side of her and that sort of thing. But on the talk shows and stuff, she's way more just, smiley, relaxed, great sense of humor, all that kind of stuff. And so it was fun to be able to see that in action when it comes to a movie. So if you end up seeing it, I would love to be able to talk to you about it later on just to see what your thoughts are. But
absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah, I do think on that note, I think Emily Blunt is one of the more underrated actors in Hollywood today. I looking at some of the movies that she's done, and actually one of her movies is in my top 5. A little bit of a spoiler there.
I bet I know what it is.
Maybe we'll see. But she's fantastic. Everything she's been in, she just almost like a Meryl Streep, where she just kind of blends in with the cast, and you go, "Oh, that's Emily Blunt. I didn't even realize." So really, I think she's somebody who is just waiting for that one role to catapult her to success, and she'll be right up there with everybody else.
Yeah. Well, you look like you were thinking of something.
No, I was just saying, Brad's last day, when I was just thinking, in the theater, you were watching, Emily Blunt, what's she doing there? I didn't recognize her anyway. Moving on.
Oh, another side note too, the outfits that they created for Mary Poppins in this movie are super stylish. I was not anticipating walking in going, oh, well, those outfits are amazing. But like, first of all, the movie takes place kind of, I think, in the 20s, I want to say 20s or 30s ish, somewhere around there. But sure, whoever did the wardrobe styling, kudos to them, because there was a lot of stuff in there to just really just admire and appreciate. So the only other thing that I can say, and I was doing that was not movie watching this week, is of course playing more Red Dead Redemption 2.
Brad's gonna hate you for that, Russ.
I know. Oh, I know.
Just kidding, Brad.
I'm in the epilogue phase. I'm in epilogue. You know what? I just made it to epilogue part 2. So I'm in the very last throes of that game. And so
only 4 more hours to go.
4 more hours. So that's what's new with me. Bradley, I'm going to hit it back to you. What have you been up to this week?
This week, it's been a good week. With Christmas starting out the week. Had a chance to play some games. I actually was able to finish the 3rd Spider-Man DLC earlier this week, and really enjoyed the DLC for that game. It isn't quite as good as the original story or the original main game there, but definitely worth picking up after you finish out the main portion of the game. Also started a new game that I hadn't even heard of and somebody recommended called The Gardens Between. Have either of you guys heard of this one?
No.
I'm going to say no.
So it's actually free on Game Pass, which makes it even better. But it's a puzzle game. It's a visual puzzle game. You're controlling two characters and trying to get them to work their way through a world that rotates. It's kind of tough to explain as I'm moving my hands here, but you can't see that, so it doesn't do any good. So, each character does something slightly different, but you're basically moving time forward and moving time backwards. And that's the general mechanic for the puzzles. So it's a lot of fun, free on Game Pass on Xbox, or I think it's like $12 on PS4. So I'd recommend picking that one up if you want to play a quick, easy visual puzzle game. And then the other game I played through earlier this week was Mega Man 11.
Oh,
so this one came out. It came out just a few months ago. I was a big fan of the Mega Man games back in the old Nintendo, Super Nintendo days, and I kind of fell off them like a lot of folks did. Haven't played one in a while, and ended up getting a copy of Mega Man 11 for Christmas. And it's a lot of fun. They've updated the art style, added a couple new mechanics to it. So if you're an old Mega Man fan looking for something to jump back in at a pretty reasonable cost, I think it's like $20 on Xbox right now. It's worth checking out. So those are kind of the games that I've been playing.
Did they do the 2.5D with that Mega Man game?
So it's almost a cell shaded style on the 2D background. So there's a little bit of 2.5, but it's really more of a 2D type play.
Okay. Well, I may have to check that out. It's been a while since I played a Mega Man game.
As it has for me, and I forgot how hard those games are. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I'm just not as quick and not as good at those type of quick reflex games as I used to be back when I was 13 years old. But this one has a pretty big variety of difficulty levels. It's also got some different items you can buy to kind of help protect you. So it's good. It's definitely worth checking out at a pretty reasonable cost. The bosses are fun. They actually have 2 modes for each boss. So once you get them down to a certain health level, then they do their special attack or their super attack. So it's a pretty cool twist on the old Mega Man game. So it's definitely worth checking out.
Right on. Steve!
Yes?
How are you doing? What is going on with you? Any big news in your world, Steve?
Well, Russ, I'm an engaged man.
Oh, congratulations.
Congrats, Steve.
Engaged man. Thank you, Bradley.
It is official.
Yes, indeed.
You put a ring on it.
I put a ring on it. If you like it, put a ring on it. If you like it. Okay, never mind. So, yeah. No, that's the big news. And I will tell you, boys, when I came home from work recently, I came upstairs and I turned the corner only to find the little lady in front of my Xbox.
Uh-huh.
She turned to face me as I walked up the stairs and said, "Your Xbox needs an update. Can I update it?" And I thought, be still my beating heart.
Oh.
And then she was saying, "I want to play Mario Kart." I like that. I don't want to have that.
And then
that's at Russ's.
Suddenly you realized you have to educate.
Yes. And then she says, Crash Bandicoot. And I thought, I might be able to help you with that. I have Russ's hard drive for the PlayStation.
Holding my hard drive hostage.
Yeah. So you don't have it on there though, Russ.
No, not Crash Bandicoot.
Right. And she was one to play the Crash Bandicoot Racing.
Uh-huh.
That's not out yet either, though. So she ran to Target and she bought Crash Bandicoot on Xbox One.
Really?
Yes.
Is this the first Xbox title she has ever bought?
Yes.
Well, Steve, looks like you chose wisely.
So that was amazing. And so she was playing a bunch of Crash Bandicoot. Played it again today when I came home from work. I thought,
Sweet.
yes, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And Crash Bandicoot does look amazing, but it is a platformer, and I forgot how much I don't really care for platformers.
Yeah, you were more of the race car boy back in the day. You were not as much of the. I was more of the platformer guy.
Yeah, I always watched you playing Crash. I'm like, okay, time your jumps. Don't get squished. You only have 5 lives. You're going to start the whole entire level over again.
What is it you collect in that? Was it bananas or pineapples?
It's like halfly ripened apples or something.
That's right. It was like peaches or something like that. Some kind of fruit.
And it was all about the crates.
Yes.
All about the crates, Russ.
I remember that. I remember liking the music in that game too.
Yeah. Fun. So otherwise, I did show her Red Dead Redemption. She wasn't very interested in that though.
Really?
Yeah, I think I just gotta sit her front of the TV, maybe tie her to the chair a little bit, and make her watch me play for longer, and then she'll get interested.
Bust out your own personal lasso and hog tires so she'll watch. Like this. You're taking it a little too far.
You sit there, you're all like it. It's good for the podcast.
Watch as I brush my horse.
See how dusty it is. Let's see, but she was having me watch a couple episodes of Black Mirror.
I have never watched that.
Apparently.
Did you?
Have you watched it, Brad?
A little bit. Have you started? Did you start with the first episode, or did she jump you in halfway through?
She jumped me in halfway through. I mean, I think from what I understand, they're all like they're not connected. They all are all different kind of stories.
Correct. It's kind of a Twilight Zone style, but
yeah,
the first episode is got some challenge to it. I'll put it that way. The first episode turned me off, and I keep wanting to get back to it, but have not had a chance.
Yeah, no, it was definitely interesting. I don't know if I'll keep watching it. She definitely likes it a lot, but anyhow, she had me watch Love Actually right around Christmas time, and I can't get some of the music out of my head from that. I was surprised too. There's a lot of very casual nudity in the movie. I'm like, women like this movie? There's like, well, okay. Wow, there's more. All right. Okay.
The only question I have for you, Steve, is was there any man boob?
Don't recall any man boob, Russ.
Oh, color me disappointed.
Actually, but there. What's the actor's name who played Bilbo in The Hobbit?
Bilbo in the
not yes, Martin Freeman. There is Martin Freeman boob in it.
Really?
Yes.
Now I'm curious. I've always wanted to know what Martin Freeman boob looks like.
Does that wet your whistle there, Russ?
You know, it's piqued my curiosity.
Yeah. But that's been really about it for me. It's all about romance, Russ. It's all about romance and chick flicks.
Well, I'm definitely happy for you. I think it's fantastic that you are engaged. Congratulations to you, good sir.
Thank you.
I look forward to finding out just what exactly the details are of the wedding. So very, very nice and astute indeed.
Oh, well, I do have to say.
Oh!
Okay, so I did watch Aquaman, and having you here spewing all about the movie without asking any of us what our take was on it, I'm going to give it to you.
Well, I was simply going through what was new with me. So please enlighten me, Steve.
I'd have to wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Bradley. So yeah, the movie started off pretty much terrible. I thought no build up whatsoever, just kind of slammed you right in there. This is the story, here how it goes, and this is what it's gonna be. And then it was green screen upon green screen upon green screen. From there, I thought, man, you show us some real underwater stuff.
It was pretty green teen-tastic.
Yeah,
green screen-tastic. Excuse me.
I thought Mr. Mimosa. I have to agree with you there, but I think the screenwriters, scriptwriters, whatever, missed a big opportunity. I think if they took the direction of like where they went with Man of Steel, for example, took a more serious note, I think it would have been cool. But how they did it was so fast, and they just threw everything out. It was long, but it seemed like they didn't really care to really build him up. I think if they took their time a little longer, Maybe more of a serious note. I think it would have been better, but there was too much of this, ha ha, I'm a superhero kind of thing. Oh, you could have peed on it. Oh, redheads, jump out of a plane. Like, I don't know. That just started to lose it for me. I know there was some part of comic relief, but even some of the action, I was just real kind of passable. It was CG galore. But the thing is, I went into it with low expectations.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was better than I thought it was going to be. But that's not saying a whole lot.
You're not saying it was a train wreck.
No.
But you're also saying it was not a movie that you're going to watch over and over.
No, yeah. I mean, it was better than Justice League. I will say that. It was a lot better than Justice League. But I'm not really going to recommend it.
Since we're talking about that again, one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie actually was at the beginning when you first discover Nicole Kidman and you see how she met Aquaman's dad. I thought that was actually really well done. I believed it. I didn't think it was cheesy or corny. I thought that was actually one of the more heartfelt things.
The ending was heartfelt.
And and the ending too was very heartfelt. It was like the beginning and the end were like, man, like it would be cool if like the whole movie had this kind of vibe going for it. But yeah.
You just like the part when Nicole Kidman ate the goldfish.
You know what? Actually, that part looks very fake. That goldfish.
You mean she didn't eat a real goldfish? Come on.
You know, I have become very picky as to how goldfish are consumed in cinema, just simply because after watching The Wolf of Wall Street, where what is his name? It's the
Leonardo DiCaprio.
No, it's not Leo, but it's the real funny guy.
Jonah
Hill. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Jonah Hill. Yeah.
Now that right there was pretty realistic. And so I kind of compare all future consumption of goldfish by that particular movie. Did you ever see that movie?
As long as you've got your standard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what counts. Well, anyway, is there anything else, Steve? I don't want to cut you off prematurely here.
Well,
any games you've been playing?
No, I've told you about the games.
Yeah, you've been entertaining the fiance now, no longer the girlfriend. Are you getting used to the name change, the title change?
Yes, I am. I referred to her as girlfriend a couple of times at work, but I corrected myself.
That happens. It happens to us all. I think that I know I can speak for myself. There were a few times where I kind of slipped up and continued saying girlfriend. And I went, oh, not any longer.
I mean, a special lady friend. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, let's segue into our topic of the day, shall we? Topic of the day is our favorite movies of the year. And if you had tuned in last week, you would have listened to us talk about how we are having fun with it from the standpoint of doing our top 5 movies of the year. And of course, we have not seen each and every flick that has come out over this past year. So please don't hold us too much to the fire when it comes to that. So instead, we're just simply looking at the movies that we have seen, which we have seen a fair amount of flicks, I must say.
Just hold Brad to the fire because he's seen a lot more than us.
Yeah, Brad's probably seen a whole lot more.
We have a scapegoat.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, exactly. We have a patsy. Good. But no, like we thought it'd be fun to be able to have a part 2 of sorts with this and do a round robin. So we will each take turns talking about our number 5 pick, our number 4 pick, and so on and so forth, all the way up until we hit our number 1 top favorite movie of 2018. My question is, who would like to go first?
Well, Brad's a special guest, Russ. I believe the common courtesy, the polite thing to do.
Think, Bradley, would you be so kind as to get us started with your number 5 pick?
Absolutely. So I will say I had a hard time with my movie list this year. I ran through the list of movies for the year. I really didn't have a lot that stood out. I found TV shows, quite honestly, better than most of the movies that I'd seen for the year. But all of that being said, I did come up with my top 5 for the year. So, number 5, Black Panther.
Ah, yes.
So that one, it actually reminds me, as we're talking about Aquaman a lot today, Black Panther kind of reminds me of Aquaman, one of those characters who I knew a little bit about, but not a whole lot. Didn't know the backstory, didn't know the side characters. It wasn't a comic I had ever read. So I wasn't too sure going into the movie what to expect out of Black Panther. And it is one that quickly became one of my favorites within the entire Marvel universe. I think Black Panther's right up there for me with some of the Captain America movies. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was superbly acted. I thought the story was good. Killmonger, arguably the best villain thus far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So top to bottom, Black Panther was one that I just enjoyed. It's actually, of the Marvel movies, I think I've already watched it 3 or 4 times, which is rare. Most of the Marvel movies I'll watch once or twice and call it a day. But I really enjoyed Black Panther, so it earned its spot at number 5.
Very nice. Very nice. Steve, what is your number 5 pick?
I would also have to say Black Panther.
Oh!
And the reason it makes 5 and not higher is that I think they, I don't know if it was Disney or whoever it was. I think they low budgeted the movie a bit. I think I may have said this when we reviewed the movie, but it seemed like towards the end, some of the CG started to fall apart. At least for me, I don't know. Maybe it's my old eyes, Brad. but yeah, I love the storytelling, and I love the time they took developing Black Panther and all the characters, Wakanda. The story they hashed out the villain, like you said, Killmonger was wonderful. He didn't have to be a superhero. He was just a real tough guy, and he had a great motive or motivation for doing what he was doing. I thought the music was great. The visuals were great. I loved. I mean, the female cast was ridiculous.
Yeah,
that was cool. I did think, just toward the end, like the story started maybe shake up a little bit, and the CG started to fall apart, which basically the 2 reasons why it didn't make higher on my list. But it's in my Netflix queue. I will be watching it again. I thought I would watch it a few more times before this show, but I will be watching it again.
Very nice. Well, this is going to shock you guys, but my number 5 pick is also Black Panther for 2018. Man, if you were here with us, Bradley, we would just be able to do kind of a Power Rangers style high five. It'd be awesome. Although I don't know which color I would be, but that's besides the point.
Pink.
When it comes
You're
to Black,
pink.
I was thinking the same thing. When it comes to Black Panther, this was also, I'm in the same boat as you guys. This was not a comic book that I read, and I didn't really even know that the character existed until I saw it be previewed in the silver screen. So I was I don't know. It's one of those stories where I'm reminded of Guardians of the Galaxy, where that too was not a comic book that I read. And so to me, it was a risk for Disney and the MCU to actually take a chance on a property that is not as well known, because it's not just us, mind you. There are a lot of the masses out there who don't really read those particular comics. And of course, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the best movies that the MCU has made. And I really do feel that Black Panther is up there too. It's one of the best movies that Marvel has made. And I think one of the cool things about it is, like, the term Black Panther tends to have a lot of controversy surrounding it just based in the real world. And so I thought it was really neat to see how this was able to take it into a completely different direction and have unanimous just interest and support and wonderment go behind it. And I think that that's really saying a lot. And I think that the story itself was one of the most heartfelt stories of the year. I absolutely loved the family dynamics of Black Panther, where we got to learn about who he was, just who his father was, who his uncle was, who his sister is, that sort of thing. And just seeing, it was almost kind of like one of those classic Shakespearean plays of sorts, where you have these bloodlines, you have these feuding families, that sort of thing. And it was handled in a way that was just really mature. And like I said, like it wasn't, like this movie could have so easily gone just pure action and become very one-dimensional. And I was so happy to see that the director didn't do that and instead introduced this wonderful world that just had a lot of tradition. It was just very rich in just how they do things and watching what happens when that gets just thrown into chaos, really, and seeing just kind of the mirrored effect when you have someone who comes to power that doesn't have the certain moral compass and ideals that the original Black Panther has when you compare him to Killmonger. Again, just there was a lot to love about it. I really do agree. I think the special effects were not as epic as we've come to expect from other Marvel movies. However, I thought the music was fantastic. I thought Andy Serkis, he was someone that we didn't really talk about. He was someone who really brought a new dimension to this film as well. And I was glad actually to see him.
Period.
Well, no, just I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but like I'll just put it this way: I really have enjoyed watching his character's arc, and I love how they brought him back in for this particular film to be able to talk to a lot of these characters who we are being introduced to for the first time. So, anyway, that is my number 5 pick. I am pleased as punch that all three of us have the exact same pick. However, it makes me wonder, what does Bradley have for number 4?
Well, I guarantee my number 4 is not the same as either one of your number 4s, because I think I'm going to drop a movie on you that neither one of you has seen, and that was a film called Searching. I watched this one about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, in preparation of us sitting down and doing the top 5, because I'd heard so many good things about it. And Searching, at a high level, it's a story about a dad whose daughter goes missing, 16-year-old daughter goes missing. The dad is played by John Cho, and he's trying to recreate her life to figure out what might have happened to her. And what I loved about the movie is the entire movie is essentially shown through the technology and the screens that we live on today. So a lot of the movie, and it's hard to describe without actually seeing it, but a lot of the movie is, you're looking at his laptop screen and he's chatting with people trying to figure out, okay, where was my daughter before she went missing? He's trying to get into her Facebook page, and just the way that it incorporates the technology we use today to tell the story was fantastic. And it was a unique take on telling a story about somebody trying to find a missing person. The story itself has some nice twists and turns, and I really enjoyed this movie. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't seen it or not familiar with it, look it up. Searching. It is worth the hour and a half to watch it. It's a good one. It's a really good one.
Yeah, I have not heard of that. Have you heard that, Steve?
I have not.
Yeah, we'll have to take a little look-see at that one. Steve.
Yeah.
What is your number 4 pick?
My number 4 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Russ.
Oh, okay.
So, I when I was making the list, I actually had Incredibles 2 as number 4. Wipe that off the map, Russ. Ooh. Wipe it off. I came into the theater. I didn't know what to expect. I saw the preview of the movie, and that's about it. Some people liked it, and where I heard talk about it, whatever. And so I totally different take on the Spider-Man that I know, and it was fresh and it was hip, and I love the music, and it's got the actor I love whose name I can't pronounce, but he was in he's in House of Cards, and he's in what's that movie with it's the
I know who you're talking about, and I know what you mean.
Yeah,
His
last name's
name
Ali, and the first name I can't even pronounce it.
Brad, do you know how to pronounce his name correctly?
Crickets.
I'm not even sure who you're talking about there. Which character did he voice?
He's the
he was the voice of the uncle.
I know the name. I know I'm gonna just completely.
Okay, I'm gonna find it now because now it's bugging me. Oh, Master Shala.
He was
Ali.
on House of Cards.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Anyway, loved him. Loved the music. I liked the young Spider-Man, and trying to figure out who he is, trying to do good, made a promise to Peter Parker. Peter, I'm not gonna spoil it. I was just about to, Russ. I caught myself. I caught myself.
It was right on the tip of your tongue.
The only thing that has me holding back on putting it higher on the list was that there are parts of the story, I don't know, it kind of was a roller coaster for me. Like, I liked some parts of it a lot, and then other parts were like, what's happening in here, and why is it not taking a different loop? And I'll just run with it, fine. And then it got good, and then it got back to one of those, back and forth. But ultimately, it was a very fun experience. It was pleasurable. I would recommend other people to see it. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, you're going to love it. Of course, there's a little Stan Lee stuff in there. Yeah. I mean, good grief. Who's not going to love that?
I got a little Twitter pated when I heard his voice again.
I did too. You know what kind of made me wonder, though, if they really sampled his voice and digitally recreated it for the movie?
Honestly, I think they probably had him record that a couple of years ago, because a movie like that is in production for a while.
Yeah. Godly. Anyhow. But I loved all the characters. I love how the story ended up. I did want more, but what they gave me, I walked into the theater and without a clue of how it was going to be, and walked out feeling good.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to see that made it into your top 5. For me, the top, let's see, my number 4 pick was, or I should say is, because I haven't even talked about it yet, will be Mission Impossible Fallout. Yes, I am very much impressed with this film. I have been a big fan of this reboot of sorts that they did. I can't remember if it was Ghost Protocol that was the first one, but they've had about 4 or 5 of them now.
I think there were about 6.
I'm not sure how many they've had, but like all the ones that they have done, I've just loved it. I thought for the longest time I was thinking, how on earth can they keep this thing fresh? Because the initial MI 1, 2, and 3, they had, each one had their own kind of style to it, but like you could tell, like, okay, how are they going to make this interesting and continue to capture the audience's attention? And so I'm glad that they took this whole thing into a whole new approach. And I think J.J. Abrams is the kind of the person to thank for this. But when it came to Mission Impossible Fallout, I was so taken with the pacing of the film. Like there was just this constant fast movement that didn't seem rushed. There's a difference between like just this acceptable fast paced feeling versus something that feels a little premature and rushed. And I really did love how they approached all of it. I thought the casting was perfect, having Angela Bassett in there, as well as oh my gosh, I blanked on his name. One of the brothers. He's the what is his name?
Alec Baldwin is in Mission Impossible.
Is that? It was Alec. It is Alec Baldwin. Yeah, there's so many Baldwins, but yeah, Alec Baldwin was in there, and there. I don't know, and of course you can't forget Henry Cavill, and I think that this was a breakout role for Henry. just because, of course, the only film that we've really seen him in is playing Superman, with the exception, of course, being that one 60s spy movie that I have not seen. I actually do want to see it, The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Mm-hmm.
Do want to see that, but I really wanted to see more from him, and I feel like this was a terrific opportunity for him to be able to demonstrate, hey, look, I can play a villain just as easy as I can play a protagonist. And I think that the visual spectacle, the way they went about this, also Tom Cruise, I mean, he did this while he was in his 50s, and it kind of sounds shallow at first glance, but like watching him do all of his own stunts, there's one thing to say that, like in other movies, we're like, yeah, no, I did my own stunts. And you look at it, you're like, okay, well, good for you.
Good for you, yeah.
But I mean, you watch this film and it's like the things he was doing, like I felt fear for his safety, even though this film had already been shot. We know that he survived for the most part. One of the things he did, I
think he's still alive all the way.
Well, I mean, one of the stunts he did, he ended up breaking his ankle.
I know.
And I mean, just you watch it, and like, again, that really adds to the movie experience for me, just being in the theater. I was on the edge of my seat just simply because I know that the stuff that I'm watching is not CGI. It's not done by a stunt double. This is literally 50-something Tom Cruise doing these amazing stunts. And it just, I don't know, I just bought into the world. I was like, okay, I'm in, I'm good to go. And I think I saw that movie like 3 or 4 times in the theater because it was just so entertaining, and their ability to be able to constantly make these fresh Mission Impossible movies over the last like 4 or 5 versions, so to speak, or episodes. I thought this was one of the best ones yet. I really love the like I said, just the character arcs and the cast and crew for it. The music was fantastic. I mean, it reminded me of what an action movie should be when you go to the theater. Because everybody loves like a good quality action movie that's like, you're just there to just sit on the edge of your seat, popping some popcorn. You're not looking for like something super deep. You just want to be thrilled. And for me, that was it. That was what number 4 came at for myself.
So I like your number 4. I've got to say, I debated that movie quite a bit, putting it on my list. It ultimately was a just miss, but I agree. I think everything you just said is right on. Mission Impossible Fallout was a solid movie top to bottom. Number 3 on my list, and I don't know if either one of you guys had a chance to watch this one in the theater. Hopefully one of you did, but number 3 for me is the Emily Blunt movie I mentioned earlier, A Quiet Place. Have you? Oh, see, it's not going to be the same.
It's on my Netflix list.
Watching it at home as watching it in a theater. Well, you got to get like 200 of your closest
if I turn
friends
it up loud enough, it will
sit
be
in the room and be deadly silent for an hour and a half, and that was the experience. And there's so many movies that we see nowadays where I can get the same experience sitting at home on my 4K TV with a Blu-ray or a 4K Blu-ray with surround sound, and it's going to be the same watching it at home as it is in the theater. And I felt like A Quiet Place was the opposite of that, where so much of the experience of watching the movie was being in a room with 100, 150 other people, and nobody's making a noise. Because as you're watching this movie, as it's unfolding, there's tension. Any noise that's in the movie is a bad thing for these characters. And everybody in the audience is silent at the same time. So just that experience alone brought this movie up quite a bit for me. Really enjoyable. Yeah. And
didn't the main actor direct it or write it or something like that? Didn't I hear something about it?
He did. John Krasinski, who was Jim on The Office, is also the director of the movie. He's also Emily Blunt's husband, for, useless trivia information there. But it's, I think, the second movie he's directed, if I remember right. I think he did one other, but did a great job. I loved the movie. I loved the experience of going to the movie. And that's why I put A Quiet Place at number 3.
Very nice. Yeah. The Quiet Place, that is, see, A Quiet Place was what Mission Impossible Fallout was for you in terms of when you're trying to figure out like which films make it to your top 5. Like A Quiet Place was that was the film for me. I'm like, because it was. I highly recommend that movie is. That's so intense. Like I would be willing to watch it with you, Steve, when you get it in. If you're interested in watching it together, I'd be down for watching it again.
Sure thing. But I think what you were referring to, Brad, is maybe everyone's being quiet and then wondering who's going to scream first when something happens. Because I've seen scary movies in the theater and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's behind the door. He's totally behind the door. And then what the movie creators will do is they'll think, okay, when the scary part happens, we're going to put a sound of an elephant, a T-Rex, a race car, and pigs being slaughtered all at the same time. And then they'll do that, and then someone goes like, ah! In the theater, I'm like, yep, that person right down there, third row to the yeah, a few 5 seats to the right. Yep, yeah, I saw you right there.
I'm telling you, I think one of the things that makes this movie so original is that, hence the name A Quiet Place. The movie itself, for the most part, is actually very, very quiet, and there's a purpose for that. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty because you need to watch it for yourself.
I figured that would be purposeful.
It is what makes it so unique is that it does not do what a lot of these other kind of like survival thriller. Not really. I mean, I wouldn't classify this as a horror movie, but it is like survival thriller kind of thing. I think that their whole approach is very different, and it adds to the intensity because it's not. I know what you're talking about with regards to like, they'll have something jump out and they'll do some sort of crazy loud noise and that sort of thing. And like this film has a couple of those moments, but 90% of the film, actually, a lot of the intensity comes from other things that just kind of build upon themselves. So anyway, we will watch it. We'll watch it together.
No.
Steve, what is your number 3 pick?
Well, Russ, I am picking up where you're throwing down, and I have Mission Impossible Fallout as number 3. Now, I kind of fell off the bandwagon with the Mission Impossibles. I mean, it's kind of all started to be the same thing with the same action. What popular band's going to play the Mission Impossible theme song, whatever, whatnot. So this one came out, and I thought, all right, here we go. Mission Impossible. We got to talk about something on the podcast, so let's go see it, So anyhow, went in the theater and, Tom Cruise was amazing in it. I thought the story was good. It felt like a proper, action movie, not set for a 16-year-old to come, do something with their time in the movie theater, right. But I mean, for an older age group to appreciate the action and the experience of older actors, there wasn't some chick just thrown in there for sex appeal. The women were intelligent and beautiful. I forgot I swear I'm terrible at names, Russ, but I forgot the actress's name. That was the lady who was the love interest of Tom Cruise.
At the end, are you talking about his wife?
No, there was his wife.
Oh,
well, his wife. Yeah, wife, but the other girl.
Yeah, you're talking about the other love interest who was kind of an elite assassin of sorts.
No, I like the whole play between them. And, but yeah, I mean, Tom Cruise learned how to fly a helicopter in this thing. So there's no co-pilot in the helicopter. That's Tom Cruise spiraling that thing out of control. So he could have died, Russ. He could have just friggin' died in the movie for our measly $10 we go to watch it. So, I didn't know what was going to happen in the movie. And so it had me on the edge of my seat. Usually I can kind of figure out what's going to happen and whatnot. So all the action, the cinematography was amazing. All the little high def GoPros or whatever they had on there to film the action sequences were fantastic. And I left the theater feeling great.
Awesome. My number 3 pick for 2018 is The Incredibles 2. And this was a movie I have been waiting for forever to come out. I can't even remember when the first one was released. I want to say it was probably at least 10 years ago.
I'll look it up here for you, Russ.
Thank you. Yeah, please look that up as I am gushing about this film. The original Incredibles, which was directed by Brad Bird, who I absolutely love his work. He did The Iron Giant. He's also done The Incredibles. And it was, do you have it?
2004.
2004. Okay. So yeah, it's been, my goodness, 14 years. Is that right? I thought that the original Incredibles was a wonderful departure from the formula that Pixar had created for itself. And that formula was the buddy system. So whether it was Buzz Lightyear and Woody, or it was Mike Wazowski and Sully, or it was Dory and I can't remember. Marlin, thank you.
Yep.
They had found this kind of buddy formula where it was just these two characters who play off each other. They have their own kind of eccentric personality traits and that sort of thing. And I am not complaining. I always love those. I think that each one of those types of movies were just a blast to watch. And I love the storytelling, that sort of thing. But The Incredibles, what makes them so unique is that having a fresh director come in like Brad Bird, because Brad Bird is not part of the Pixar stable. He's kind of more of a special guest director of sorts. It was really fun to have him play in the Pixar sandbox and be able to mess around with all these different characters, introduce this whole new, like, fully realized world. And again, it was kind of this stylized version of reality, and I loved how they took kind of the 50s and 60s style of things and they incorporated that into their line art. And then of course when it comes to the CG of things, all the characters were these 3D versions of a lot of what kind of popular art styles were in existence back in the day. I love the family dynamics too. I loved how these were superheroes who were original and they had their own kind of conflicts that they were having to deal with, being secret identities and that sort of thing. And with The Incredibles 2, literally, I'm so glad this was literally like a Peter Jackson Two Towers moment where he started the second Incredibles off right when the first one ended. And it was, it just reminded me of like when you begin the Two Towers and how it's right when Gandalf is falling in the mines of Moria and he's fighting that huge, was it a Balrog? Is that what they're called?
Yes, it is.
Oh, Steve's having to think.
Yeah.
My goodness. I have two Lord of the Rings mega fans with me, and both of them had to have pregnant paws.
Oh, I was unmuting. Yes, it's a Balrog.
It's a Balrog. Okay.
Anyway.
Yes. Anyway, I absolutely love when directors have the foresight to be able to just dive the audience right back into this world. No apologies. There's no kind of lead up or hand holding. It's like, no, if you didn't watch the first one, that's your problem. We're going to go right into this and just, let's just have some fun with it. And I think that was just fantastic with Incredibles 2 was the storyline began to examine more family dynamics where suddenly the wife was going out and being the breadwinner, so to speak, whereas Frank was having to experience more of what it was like to be a stay-at-home parent. I love seeing all of the journeys with that, as well as returning characters like Edna Moe coming back in. I thought the villain was pretty original as well. I liked a lot of the dynamics between the siblings and that sort of thing on that side of the equation, but the whole time I'm watching it, I mean, it was almost like a dreamlike state for me, simply because I had been waiting so long to watch this movie, and they gave it the same level of TLC that they gave the first one. And I remember turning to you, Steve, in the theater and just whispering to you like, man, I'm in awe of this. This is amazing, because some of the camera angles that they were doing and with the characters were just, remember how they were just moving about so effortlessly and fluid. I mean, I totally forgot I was watching a 3D animation, and it just, I don't know. I was just on this amazing Incredibles ride. It was an incredible ride, Steve. So yeah, that was my number 3 pick. Very, very happy. I sincerely hope that they continue to make more sequels of this particular franchise, because I think it would just be a waste. And I hope that they don't wait another 10 to 14 years to come out with Incredibles Part 3.
And if they do, they need to finish up the Underminer story.
Yes.
Because they brought him in the first one, and they brought him back in the second one. Oh, he got away again.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, that is another quality of the world that Brad Bird created, where it wasn't just, oh, here's this one singular villain or whatever, and they dispatched of him and then they live happily ever after. Like, I loved how the first one ended, where there was a tease of sorts, where there was yet another villain that came out of nowhere. And just, I don't know, it's like, it plays into that idea of this living, breathing world that's filled with all kinds of possibilities in terms of creative storytelling. So anyway, let us go into our number 2 pick. Bradley, what is your number 2?
So my number 2 was actually my number 1 up until about a week ago, and we'll talk about that when I get to my number 1. But my number 2 is Annihilation.
Annihilation. Have I
Annihilation with Natalie Portman. Sci-fi movie. I loved it. I loved it from start to finish. I didn't know what to expect. This was another one where I had some friends recommend it to me, and I knew nothing about it going in. Hadn't even watched a trailer.
Is this out right now, or was this out earlier?
Oh, this is on video. It came out beginning of the year,
Okay.
April, March, something like that. February 23rd looks like it came out. So it's a sci-fi movie. I don't even want to say too much about it, because you're better off just going into it not knowing anything. And like I said, I loved it from start to finish. It was beautifully acted. Some of the scenery was amazing. It's got a twist of an ending that just caught me. Like I said, it was my number 1 up until about a week ago when something took its place. I absolutely loved Annihilation.
Wow. That
Okay.
I am surprised.
Okay.
Well,
It took me a minute, because I was like, man, I know it sounds like vaguely familiar, but yeah, it came out during the first part of the year.
it did. And I will tell you, I talked with our good friend Chris Pelfrey, and
Yes.
he also had this as his number 1 for the year. So it's not just me. I'm not crazy.
Wow.
He and I were on the same page with this.
I have to admit, when I saw the trailers for it, it did not capture my interest at all. It just seemed really generic, I guess you could say. Like I'm a fan of Natalie Portman's, but like when I saw it, I was like, oh, man, there's nothing here that's promoting me to see. But man, both you guys have high praise for it. That's
Absolutely.
saying something for sure.
So there you go. Over to you, Steve. What do you have at your number 2?
Well, I have Deadpool 2 as my number 2.
Oh yeah, good old Deadpool.
Good old Deadpool. So I went into the theater and I thought, well, they got to recreate the magic of the first one, or else this is going to fall flat on its face.
Which wouldn't be the first time that Deadpool fell flat on his face.
Yes, or got sliced in half or
Yes,
whatever.
or dismembered.
Yes. So, it definitely was not as good as the first, but definitely still held the magic. I thought it was funny. I thought Ryan Reynolds was great. I thought Josh Brolin was great as Cable. I did want a little bit more from Josh Brolin, but because he went right from Infinity War to this, or vice versa, whatever, I mean, he had both characters down, and I thought that was awesome. I loved the action, and I thought it was it was fun having Domino. I thought Domino was awesome. Almost made the movie just by herself. I thought all the interaction with the characters was fantastic. I thought it was really funny, and it made me want a third one. I mean, when you start to make these sequels, that's a real gamble. I mean, they're going to be keeping it the fire strong, or they're going to be like, yeah, okay, this is just a money grab. And I didn't think it was a money grab at all. I thought it was really good, and I can't wait for Deadpool 3.
Awesome. Well, my number 2 pick was, I said was again in the past tense. I've got to correct my past versus present tense. My number 2 pick is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which of course I just saw tonight. What a risk. I mean, we've talked about this earlier about different types of films that take risks. And I think that this is yet another film that took a major risk when they decided to have multiple spider people in the same film. And I think especially because the classic original Spider-Man has really been the pinnacle of sorts when it comes to comic book to movie translations. Obviously, Spider-Man was the first to come out back in 2002, was it? I believe was the first one, 2001, 2002. And so there was a lot, I think, writing on this just simply because a lot of folks, they just don't read the comic books. They only go to the movies. And even for someone like myself, like I enjoy reading The Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm not into collecting every single Spider-Man comic book that's out there. And of course, as a result, I didn't have any kind of idea of the details surrounding the Spider-Verse and that sort of thing. But I think that there are major kudos that need to go to Sony. I think that the art direction in particular is a massive step in the right direction in terms of just what is possible for a movie. I think that this type of thing you would come to expect almost from like a video game. Like if you're watching a video game cinematic or even like a certain art style that the game engine can do for a particular title, I think that those types of things you don't really see a whole lot in film. And I'm especially when it comes to 3D animation, there's kind of this comfort zone of sorts. And it doesn't matter if it's DreamWorks or it's Pixar or Disney or Illumination, anyone, they have found this kind of safety net of sorts where they are able to animate everything in a very similar fashion. And it's all very high quality. I'm definitely not complaining about it. But I think what's super cool about watching this particular film is you got a glimpse as to see what else was possible with how this movie is portrayed, whether it's a drop in frames per second or it's adding in 2D elements with the 3D elements, as well as the framing where they were clearly taking certain layout designs of traditional comic books and applying them in a film like this. That was a lot of fun. Also, too, with the characters, obviously, I don't read or follow the Spider-Gwen storyline, as well as Peter Porkins, or even I can't even remember the name of the film noir version of Spider-Man, but I found myself really just having a blast with all the different characters that were in this. Even the villains themselves, I mean, just all of them were very captivating, and it was just a fresh take on the whole thing. And I really want to see some sort of ongoing series with this. I don't know like how it's going to do with just the critical acclaim and just with the profits that they're going to make. But I'm so happy to see an animation studio like Sony, which Sony is not exactly known for their high-end movie animations. I mean, Sony as a movie studio, that's not my go-to, as opposed to like Disney or Illumination or some of the others that I mentioned. So yeah, there's just a lot to take in with that. Honestly, I really struggled to find something that I didn't like as much. I think if I had to pick something about the film, it's just I want to know more about these individual characters, which of course I could do if I went into the comic book side of things. But at the same time, I felt that the pacing was quick. The dialogue was original and sharp. I loved finding out about Miles Morales' family history and just getting to know the different characters, the tragedy that would happen here and there, as well as the budding bond that was going on between all the different spider folk, so to speak. So that gets my number 2 pick. We are now at the numero uno phase of our round robin. Bradley, what is your number 1 pick for 2018?
You know, I think this actually might be, other than Black Panther, this might be the only movie on all 3 of our lists. My number 1 is Into the Spider-Verse. And before I echo a lot of the same sentiments you and Steve have had on the movie, let me just pose this question. So Into the Spider-Verse, the story and the script was written by a guy named Phil Lord, who really got his big break with the Lego movie. After the Lego movie, he and his partner were hired to write and direct Solo, a Han Solo story. Imagine a world where he had been
Imagine a
given
world.
the appropriate controls to create the Han Solo story that he wanted to create. So that's all.
Has he been on record as saying that?
Well, I mean, he and Kathleen Kennedy did not see eye to eye, and that is why he was dismissed, and Play It Safe Ron Howard was put in place for Solo.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that.
So
now.
that's, I do think sometimes, what would Solo have been if Phil Lord were given the creative controls and told, hey, go out there and make a fun Han Solo origin movie? Because seeing what he did with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Lego movie, which I don't know if you guys have watched that one, that movie's amazing for what it was. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So this is one I had everybody I know who'd seen this saying, oh my God, it's great. You've got to go see it. You've got to go see it. It's better than you expect. I went in with sky high expectations, and it blew me away, even with those expectations. I loved everything about this movie, the music, the visuals, the story, the twists, the turns. I cannot say enough great things about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. To me, by far, this is the best Spider-Man movie that we've gotten. It surpasses Homecoming. It surpasses Spider-Man 2. I loved this movie. The moment where Miles first, when he finally takes the leap of faith and jumps off the building to become Spider-Man, it's pulling at the heartstrings, and it's just, I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting emotional watching this guy live up to what he could live up to. So, anybody who has not seen this, go see it. It's a movie that's worth supporting. It's good storytelling, well animated, amazing music. It is worth the $12 or whatever it is to go see a movie in your town. Go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Right on. Very nice. Steve, what is your number one pick?
I'm saying Avengers of Infinity War, Russ.
You look like you struggled with that.
No. So that's the movie that I walked into, pounding headache right after work, traffic, getting lost on my way there. So I was already PO'd, and by the end of the movie, I didn't even want to leave the theater. I thought, play the movie again. I'm ready to sit here and watch the entire thing again. And I can't say that for any other movie that I've seen this year or last year. Almost pretty much probably since Blade Runner. Not even with Blade Runner. I mean, it's been a long time since I've sat in a theater and thought that, like, play the movie all over again. I'm not moving. I thought that Josh Brolin, like I said earlier, did a great job. I thought the animation for his character was probably the best I've seen for a full CG character, with the weight distribution and the movement and the way he voiced over the character, and with the facial animations. With that, I thought that was the best I've seen. I didn't know how they were going to do with all the characters on screen and all their stories coming together. I didn't know what was going to happen. Or if it could even be pulled off with so much going on with this one movie, and they did it. I mean, they're on their, I think it was the 19th movie, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, yeah.
And they brought everything together like perfectly. I thought, they accomplished so much with this one movie. I didn't know how it was going to be possible. I really didn't. I mean, the trailers looked great. We've been following all these stories. And for a while, I was getting a little bit nervous because they started bringing all the kind of the wonky humor in there, and I thought they can't do that with this movie at all, and they didn't. So just like Brad said with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I came into it like, you guys got to hit a home run here, and my expectations are high, and they went right to my expectations, and I loved them for it. And I've kept that all the way until now, and that's what's going to drive me to spend more money watching Captain Marvel. I'm taking everyone I know with me, which is very little, end of the theater with me to see the next Avengers movie, and I have not stopped thinking about it.
Fan-freaking-tastic. My number one pick for 2018, same as you. It is Avengers Infinity War. what a crowning achievement in cinema. I have got to say, when I watched that film, I was reminded of why I go to the theater. I think that there were just insurmountable amount of expectations that were placed on this film as they continued to build upon the release of it over the past 10 years. And having the sheer amount of cast members in this movie and the need to be able to deliver on all fronts that doesn't seem muddied or contrived or anything to that effect. The Russo brothers came in and just absolutely knocked it out of the park. I cannot believe the level of excellence that they were able to achieve with this movie. And it's just, I mean, I saw that movie several times in the theater when it was out, and I literally could not believe what I was seeing in front of my face. And it is such a culmination of just, I mean, I remember back it being in junior high, being in like 7th grade and having these nerdy conversations with my friends who were also comic book lovers. And we were fantasizing about what it was like to be able to go into a theater and look at some of these comic book characters come to life on the big screen, but do so in a way that was mature, that like had just this amazing presence. And here I am several years later, just basking in the golden years that it is these comic book movies. And this particular film in particular, what I find to be so special about it was that my favorite character was the villain. That's the craziest thing about this particular movie is you have all of these AAA characters that have come together and they're all wonderful to watch. But the character that I found to be most fascinating was Thanos. Seeing the character development within this movie, because we saw glimpses of him here and there briefly at the end of other films, but watching and learning about who Thanos is and how he's just this very demented general of sorts, kind of an intergalactic general who really does think that he's doing the universe a favor by going on this maniacal quest for the gauntlet and everything else. And the fact that we know that like the movie itself is not over, that we have part 2 coming out next year. It is, I mean, I loved everything. I loved how it ended. I loved just all the in-between parts of it. The music, the wardrobe, all that stuff. I mean, it comes together, and I just could not believe that we have a movie of this caliber within this genre. And like I said earlier, I mean, it is such a crowning achievement, not only for the Russo brothers, but also Kevin Feige, who just, he leads the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I almost have trouble finding the words to be able to adequately describe.
It blows your mind.
It really does. I mean, like it is completely and utterly mind blowing to go and watch that movie and just see. I mean, even the characters like from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like what I said earlier, I never read the comic book, but I fell in love with these characters based off of these movies that they had come out with earlier. Seeing all these characters like Spider-Man along with the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy coming together with Doctor Strange. I mean, like you just have this huge just assembly of these characters that actually don't step on each other's toes, have wonderful chemistry with each other. They're able to shine during their own individual parts. It's just, I'm not, and I know for a fact that I'm not even beginning to give the necessary compliments and critique for that film. But that type of film, I mean, and I remember when we reviewed it, I placed that film at the level of Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. And Empire Strikes Back is one of my all-time favorite movies. Like that is a very rare occurrence for someone like myself to be able to place a movie at that level of quality, because Empire Strikes Back in my book is basically it's a perfect film. So anyway, having said that, I think that it goes without saying that actually even the movies that didn't make necessarily our top five. I mean, there were ones that Brad, I know that you mentioned, as well as Steve, that were very close that I couldn't put into my top five. But I think that it's important to note that even last week when we talked about how 2018 was arguably probably one of the best years of gaming, I really do think that 2018 in terms of movie watching, you had a very strong lineup that maybe not was dropping all throughout the year, but just there were several titles that have come out that were just a lot of fun to watch. It really brought me back into the theater. And I mean, that just, I don't know, 2018, and when it comes to games and movies, I think is just a banner year. What do you guys think?
Well, for games, for sure. Movies, a little bit of a toss-up. I had some higher expectations for some movies. Like, for example, you liked Incredibles 2 a lot more than I did. I did enjoy the movie, but it did leave some stuff to be desired for me. And I was looking through the list of movies that we saw. And yeah, it was a good year, but I didn't think it was a great year.
Okay. What about you, Brad?
I tend to agree with Steve. I think Incredibles 2 is a perfect example of a movie that I had sky high expectations for, and it was fine. Forgettable is probably the word I would use to describe Incredibles 2. I will say, and I have to put my little disclaimer, I debated Avengers. It was kind of my number. It went anywhere from number 3 to number 6 on my list. It ended up just missing my top 5, really only because I feel like it was half a movie. I still feel like we haven't seen the whole story unfold when it comes to the Avengers versus Thanos. And, I need to see the second half of this before I determine, where this fits into my list. But fantastic movie. As I mentioned kind of before I started with my top 5, the best media experience I had from watching this year was actually on TV. And, that's a shift, because 10 years ago, I never would have said that. It was the movie theater. It was going to the cinema and getting that excitement and being caught up in the zeitgeist of talking about a movie right when it comes out. And I feel like stories are better on TV right now. It's the biggest example I've got, or the greatest example I've got there, is The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. I have never been as engrossed with a story as I was watching the 10 episodes of that show. There are 2 episodes right in the middle of the series that I'm just sitting there with my mouth open the entire time going, oh my God, how did they pull that off? There's one episode in particular where this hour-long episode where you've got time jumps and different actors coming and going. It's made up of a series of like 4 or 5 single tracking shots. And there's one that goes like 17 minutes and you go back and forth between 2 different timelines. Actors are trading in and out. There's a storm going on. It's incredibly intense and emotional. And the fact that they pulled this off in a single, 17-minute shot, it's mind-boggling. And, being able to sit at home and watch something like that on Netflix it's changed the way stories are told today. So that would be my last plug, would be, if you're going to watch something, or if you want to watch something that's just fantastic, watch The Haunting of Hill House, because that was by far the best piece of media put on screens this year. But I mean, it was a fine year for movies. Just movies aren't what they were 10 years ago. And that's probably a conversation we could save for another episode of Joygasm, where we could compare 2008, 2007 with what we get out of movies these years, or what we get out of a movie season these years. And it just doesn't compare. The storytellers and the actors have started to tell their stories in different ways, and a lot more of it's going direct to TV. So it's a shift.
No, I think that's a very astute observation, because I agree. I think that a lot of your super talented script writers and screenplay writers, they are making the transition into TV. And especially when it comes to Netflix and Amazon, they're throwing a lot of serious dollars at folks in Hollywood to be able to lure them over and be able to work on their content. And you're seeing the fruits of their labor, just like what you're talking about. So yeah, I think that perhaps in the future, we should have you come back on the show and we can be able to dive deeper into that, because I do think that there is quite a bit that we could analyze as it applies to both the movie industry versus the television industry. Because even, back in the day too, the TV industry was really suffering there for a while. It just could not hold a candle to cinema. And yeah, I'm inclined to agree for the most part. I think that television has really risen back from the ashes to the point where there's a lot more just original storytelling opportunities there as opposed to what you see in the cinema.
I agree.
So anyway, I want to definitely thank you, Brad, for coming on for part 2 of this. So we will, like I said, we will definitely have you back if you would, if you're interested, if you want to come back in.
Oh, of course. Anytime, that.
Oh,
guys.
Thank you. That wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week for our anticipated games of 2019. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm and consider becoming a monthly contributor. You'll get exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it really helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, you can follow us on social media and YouTube. Just do a search for Joygasm TV. In addition to iTunes and Android, you can listen to our podcast on TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Spotify, and SoundCloud.com/Joygasm TV. Last but not least, search Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We will see you next week.
See you, everybody. See you, Brad.
Bye.